Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Time Networking version. I'm super excited to be here today because this is one of people I love dearly, and I'm not just saying that to kiss up. Um, but first, my name is Patricia Hayes. I am a executive advisor, empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist, which we're going to get to learn a lot more about just because of this conversation, where we are focused on talking about building relationships and actually showing people how to do it in a network. And my friend here, business bud here, Michelle DeNio, is here with me today to talk about all things networking and business. Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm super excited to be here. I feel like we have been trying to coordinate this for way too long. So the fact that we actually made it happen is like, oh my God, it finally came together. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so I'm going to catch everyone up. Like literally, Michelle and I, we have been through 2 groups together. We have worked on stuff together, and we kept saying we were going to do this chat. And it's been like 6 months, 6 months or so. It's been a while. It's been a minute. So that's why we're both really excited to be here today, because we've been trying to do this for a while, and we're like, yay, we finally pulled it off. So we're just gonna like jump right in. And Michelle, why don't you like tell us a little bit about you, first of all, and your business, and then we'll talk about how we met and all the great things that have come as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Michelle DeNio. I'm a business growth strategist. I work one-on-one primarily with growth stage entrepreneurs. My goal in life, my mission in life is for entrepreneurs, small business owners, really like business owners, to not feel like they have to be on this journey alone. That is 100% my passion and my mission. And so being able to help entrepreneurs just get through each stage of growth, whether it's a development stage, growth stage, and creating that strategic plan. I always tell everybody, consider me your GPS in your back pocket. You know, we never leave home without this. If we get lost or on the road, we can tell or ask Google or Apple Maps, like, here's where I am and here's where I'm trying to go. What do I need to do? I feel very strongly the same holds true in your business. You know where you are and you know where you're trying to go. What are the steps to get there? And trying to find that route can be pretty confusing. And so that's my goal. That's my mission. That's what I do in the one-on-one space. And then I am also the founder and creator of the Accelerated Business Alliance, which is just I know, I'm like, I don't even know how to quantify that right now, but to me, it's just a true exclusive community and alliance of professional entrepreneurs having each other back and growing and scaling in just the most beautiful way.
Oh, yes. So I'm like blatant because I am a member of the alliance. So like I'm all in, and it's really great. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But it's really so profound when you get the right people together, and then they support each other, they have each other's back, they also challenge each other, right? Which is what we want in our professional relationships. So speaking of which, backtrack quickly, how we met. So we actually met first in a different networking group.
Yep.
And we started interacting a little bit more because we were both teaching in that group. And then we were like, okay, it's transition time, and separately had decided we were moving on. And then Michelle's like, hey, guess what? I'm going to do this thing. Tell us about the thing.
You might be interested in it.
And that's the alliance. Yeah. And so, talk a little bit more about really where the alliance, like the foundation of it, comes from, because you're so passionate about it and it comes through in everything that you do with it. So I want you to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the alliance to me was that, again, like, I really don't feel like anybody should have to be in business alone, and there is power. We are better together. I feel very strongly that we're better together. And I've also always been a huge fan of true peer-to-peer masterminds, because sharing experience that we can just brainstorm and have that container and that space where you can say, like, what would you do in this situation? Or what do you think about this? We all have those moments. I mean, we do it in our personal lives all the time. You have your girlfriends, you go to the hairdresser and you spill your guts, right? But like from a business sense, there isn't, like, you don't go to the salon and have a place where you can spill your guts and get your questions answered, right? And so I've always loved to be a connector of people. I feel very, very strongly about that as well. And I'm one of these. We have a friend that we call him I know a guy. And whenever you needed something, when we lived in New York, whenever you needed something, you just called Chris, because his answer is always, oh, I know a guy or girl, whatever. But that's what it was. And I wanted to be that. Like, my goal when I got into the online space was to be that connector of people, because there's power in that. And networking, which is hard for people, and being able, how do you meet all these people, and what do you say, and how do you connect? And also, like, if you've had conversation, you can save somebody time by saying, I know somebody, I've worked with them, I vetted. I mean, that's the world we live in, word of mouth, power of referrals. But there wasn't a place I couldn't find in the online world, in the virtual space, where you could get all of those things, that true feedback. You had groups that were networking, you had groups that were masterminds, you had groups that were coaching, you had but none of them brought everything together. And that's where the Alliance kind of just said, this is the container we need. This is the space that is missing. And I know how to do it, and I'm going to do it, and we're going to figure it out together. And it's just been such a beautiful place to be.
It really has. And I will say this again, I am a member, so take it with your box of salt if you think I'm partial, because I am. But truly, I mean, and I've been a part of a ton of networking groups, activities, organizations. I'm like, I'm the queen of join the thing. And one of the things that I think is so unique about this space is the fact that, number one, you didn't mention this, but it is highly curated. You can't just jump in this space, right? You have to get past the other woman on the screen here first, which is that's a totally different approach to it. And that means also that that you've had someone who's done some great screening to make sure you're going to have other people who are willing to commit to engaging, because that's really one of the most difficult things that people find, and why they say they hate networking so much, is because people aren't reciprocal when it comes to the engagement part.
Right.
And when you're paying to be in a space, you kind of want that. And also the masterminds, y'all. I love my mastermind group. I mean, you want to talk about being able to spill your guts, and then like, Trisha, why are you doing that? Or whatever, but like, it's a non-judgmental space, and it's a safe space. That's another and really important thing. So I don't care where you go, make sure that you are always looking for those things that meet your needs, that provide a safe space for you to engage fully in the way, not just that you want to, but that you need to, because those are not the same thing.
Right. Yeah. And, again, that's what makes this for you and I, and why we, I think, just clicked so quickly. And I mean, it's because we value relationships, right? And that to me is what networking is. Networking to me is not about passing your business card to everybody, or sharing, if you're in the virtual space, your I help statement, or, putting on your LinkedIn profile all of your accreditations and all of your, all the letters after your name. Like, it means nothing to me. All of those things mean nothing to me. Like, I really thrive on that human interaction and getting to know people and understanding. And again, like, how can I connect you, and who would be a great referral, and how can I make this happen, and that's the power of networking, right? And that's how you and I connected. I mean, even we were in that container together, but you were in a group with one of my clients who you had, you know what I mean? And so it's like, there's that 3 degrees of separation or whatever. And so being able to just have those conversations and connect is, you just never know where it's going to lead, and we didn't get on a call when we were both in that group with the expectation that I was going to launch something like that. Wasn't even a thought of at that time. And so you just don't know when or where those relationships are going to just benefit you in the long term.
Yes. Yeah. I say this all the time. So I just want everybody to know, I did not script Michelle to say that. So just so you know, but because that is something I believe in strong. People who want to be transactional that's what you're going to get. It's the, let me go in. If I can get something, let me get what I can get. If they can't help me, I'm out. That's called transactional networking. And neither one of us are proponents of transactional networking. We're very much into relationship building and relational networking, which means you're making an investment of your time and your person. And sometimes it, comes back to, and comes to fruition faster than others. But other times we both have stories of where some relationship we had years ago, all of a sudden someone calls, picks up the phone, they're like, hey, Patricia, hey, Michelle, I got something for you. And you're like, okay, right? And that makes a world of difference. The other thing we were just talking about before we got on, which is somebody might say, well, how don't y'all do the same thing? Like, how does this work? So we were like joking and laughing about that. I'm like, we don't do the same thing. We do complementary things. So tell them a little bit more about what we were talking about, Michelle.
Yeah, we were talking about how, I'll create the space, you teach them how to use it, right? And that's really what it comes down to, is that, I can share best practices all day long, but that's Patricia. I mean, that's you. You love to teach people how to network effectively and how to utilize it and to use through the transitions and how to make those relationships and whatnot. And my goal is to just create the space. Like, let's create the space. Let's bring everybody together. How can I connect you? Who, what, whatever. But again, it's the engagement piece that you really focus on and teach people of how to speak, how to show up. What do you say? And that, I think, is just, there's so much power in it.
It is. And I have no shame in saying it. I started putting it in some of my descriptors of like, I am not the person who's going to create a networking group. Like, that is not what I do. I want to be able to engage in them myself. I don't want to run one. I had to come to terms with that some time ago, because that takes away from the thing I really love, which is helping to show people how to maximize on their engagement investments, right? And so that's, it's the power again of not viewing everybody as a competitor. And instead focusing on collaboration. With my lipstick, y'all can see that, right? Connect, collaborate, conquer. I'm blatant. I have no problems with it. So in that though, and all the experience I know that you have, what have been some of your greatest networking challenges, either personally or with the people that you work with?
So networking challenge is always finding the right place. Like, where are the people? Where are they hanging out? How do you get connected with them? I think that's a huge struggle. Yeah. Another struggle for me is that people do it poorly, which we could talk about for days. But again, like, there's a lot of people that create a space for networking, but it's always missing the mark. Like, I attended a networking event a couple of weeks ago, and it was supposed to be an open networking coffee chat group mess. And it was like a presentation. And all of us sat there and just watched this presentation from this lady. None of us had a chance to actually talk or connect aside from just our simple intros. And so I just actually had a coffee chat with one of those women, and we were both talking about it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's always like something misses the mark. And I think that's why people have such struggles with networking, or have such a bad taste in their mouth, is because there's a lot of people that do it poorly. It's all about what's in it for them, and not the mutual benefit, mutually benefiting each other. So I think that's probably the biggest struggle, is like finding where to network. And also too is getting past the wall, because again, people have done it poorly. It's no different than any other industry. I'm a coach. There's a lot of coaches that have done things wrong. And so people have a wall up, and so when you try to network, people immediately are like, what does she want? Yeah. There's no way you're reaching out to me just to say hello. You clearly want something else, right? So breaking down that wall to let people know, like, no, I'm literally just genuinely want to get to know you, and I just genuinely want to help. Like, if I can answer some questions, please just let me know. And that is tough to break down that wall.
Yeah. No, it is. That whole trust factor is major, especially, you've seen, just like I know that I have in the last few months, the numbers around how many people have entered the online space in the last 2 years. And there's so much noise that people are like, okay, whatever, I'm not really listening to any of this anymore. So now you have this additional thing of moving past and the difficulty of trying to figure out who do you talk to and how, and coupled with, oh, by the way, now we have hybrid events, hybrid activities. And for those people who never figured it out before we went online and went virtual, they're just like, I'm just going back to my hole and I'll call it a day. And that's not what we want you to do. We don't want you to do that.
No. There's so much missed opportunity and just conversation and connection. And, I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, you got to talk to people. Like I told a client that the other day when she was like, I just feel like I'm getting on a lot of calls and it's a waste of my time. And I'm like, no, you always gain something. You gain a lesson on how to vet your people better. You gain something, like you gain somebody knowing your name, you gain an introduction to somebody else. Like you have to go into it with the fact that like, no matter what, you are going to gain something, even if it's a lesson in never doing this again, that you've gained that because now you've learned that. And so you can't go into it with anything else than that. Like just, I don't know what's going to come of this, but I'm going to gain something from it.
Yes, that perspective is so valuable. And it's really a mindset shift, right? You have to go in with the mindset of, regardless of what happens, there's something I can learn from it or something that I will receive from it that I just don't know yet, right? And it's not wooey, it's the truth. I've seen it happen too many times. And so just go into it, just start. I know you have the same issue that I've had folks who say, oh, but I'm an introvert, so I really don't get. I'm like, that does not have to do anything with your ability to build relationships. You can talk.
Most introverts are actually very chatty when you can get them privately. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just the overwhelm of doing it over and over. And that's what I try to, and for those people that really truly feel that way, the thing is, one, just once you do it once, it gets easier. But two, like, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. If that is super draining, have one conversation a week. That's it. Like, that's enough. You don't have to have 6 conversations a week just because you feel like you need to meet as many people as possible. If that is going to drain every ounce of your energy, then don't do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if I told you to go out and meet, 150, 175 people, you would, like, most people would glaze over, their eyes would glaze over, they would completely shut me out. But when I tell people, like, look, make a goal of reaching out to 3 people a week, right? If you push yourself, maybe 5. And then I'm like, now when you do the math, guess how many that adds up to over a year? Chunk it down, do what works for you. And then I always say a little bit extra to push yourself, to challenge yourself, because you do want to get out of your comfort zone. But when it comes to like my introverts who are like, I can't, I'm like, you talk to people, right? Like, it's just talking about, but you're talking to them, let's say, maybe not in a group, maybe it's one-on-one, maybe you're scheduling it in advance so you can prepare yourself. Like, there are things you can do to accommodate and to still grow yourself and your business without just shooting yourself in the foot and saying, well, I can't do that.
Absolutely.
That gets you nowhere.
Well, and I guess that's the choice you have to make, right? Like, if that's truly how you feel, then that's one thing. And that's, I think, one thing that's really important to keep in mind when it comes to networking or building relationships is that if that's truly how you feel and it is very much out of your comfort zone, then you have to be okay with the results that come from that as well,
So let's talk real quickly about the obvious, right? I mean, you're a business strategist and we're talking about networking. And we kind of jumped in there, right? But like, let's back up just a second and, share a little bit more about, the work that you do and why the networking piece plays such a huge part of anyone who's, learning or, trying to grow their business.
Yeah. The thing is I think a lot of people have fallen prey to the build it and they will come, right? Build it and they will come. And so we have a slew of business owners that have a beautiful offer, a great service, they're amazing at what they do, or they have a beautiful product, something like that. But there's only so far you're going to be able to grow it without personally marketing it and creating some kind of personal brand. And the reason I feel very strongly about that is because if you think about it, and what I always challenge everybody to do is like, think about the last thing you purchased. Think about the last service you bought, mostly services. Let's just say that because I do a lot with service based. You don't usually just buy something transactionally. Like you usually buy something because you feel connected to them. Like you feel like you know them, or there's something you have in common, and you can have great conversation around it, or it's just people connect with people. That's what the reality is. And we bill and we usually buy from somebody we're connected with. Even in my corporate days, when I worked in corporate, I was in charge of all of our international and truckload shipping. And we used to have salespeople come in all the time and trying to get us to ship with them and whatever. But I had such a beautiful personal relationship with the girl that we used. And like, I didn't matter. I could call her at 4:30 and she got a truck in by 5. Like she had my back. And that's the thing. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter about price or different things. It doesn't matter if your service is better. Sometimes people are going to connect with you. And that is why I feel so strongly about strategy. All the best laid strategy in the world. Yes, there are automations. Yes, there are funnels. Yes, there's a lot of digital things that you can do to get your offer in front of everybody else. But eventually people still come back to, especially if you're a service provider, serve you as a person. And that's how and the other thing is it's one and done, but what I try to teach is sustainability and loyalty. That's what to me, business strategy and growth is built on sustainability. If you're constantly in the turn and burn and having to find clients all the time, then there's only so long that's sustainable. And relationships are what is going to create that loyalty and what's going to create that long-term sustainability. And so business growth, when you get to this level and you know it, then you can go out and build to this level, and then you grow to here, and then you can go out and build to this level. But that all takes time, and it takes you getting known as the face of your brand, getting known as the expert. That's where the word of mouth comes in, because people are loyal to you. And so that's where networking plays such a massive role for me, because I just don't view any of the other strategies without that sustainable for the long haul. They're very up and down. They're very cyclical. There's, you've got to put a lot of money behind them. And so
I was just about to say that
it's money, and you've got to be willing. So you've got to look at it from that point. And again, turnover and the cost of client acquisition. And, if you want to profit, your profit comes in from not having to find new clients. That's where it comes, it comes in from those loyal repeat business.
It's that piece I was thinking this when you were talking about how people want to be whatever, name your big company brand, right? They want to be that type of success, not realizing the number of either dollars and or people that go into it being a household name. People just want to be able to just go straight to that. And most people can't. And the majority of businesses in our country, in the United States, are small businesses. So it's completely unrealistic to think that you are going to operate as a small business person, but have a Coke or a Nike brand, right? Without some effort.
Yeah. And, you're not comparing apples to apples, because Coke and Nike were 50, I don't even know how long.
I don't know. I think Coke's like over 100 years.
Exactly. Like everybody starts, and that's the thing. And so when they first started too, there wasn't all this technology. They built their brand on relationships. They built their brands on networking. And I think that's the reminder I try to always bring back to, is like, these most successful brands didn't have all the tools we have today. What they had was their people. That's what they had to build. And so that's what you have to use and think about, is now they have dollars and TV and media and tools and all of those things. But when they first started, they didn't. And that's, ask any solid business owner, a successful business owner, how did you get started? And 90% of them are going to say word of mouth. Referrals, that type of thing. And that is where it still will and will always play a role. It's where 95% of my business, I can't think of a single client. I was honestly, if I'm thinking about it, 100% probably. I cannot think of a single client that I have gotten without having some kind of like just building a relationship with them, just in sheer relationship building. All
It
of my
always
clients
still
have come from that.
surprises me. I mean, you know, I do a lot of public speaking. And so I'll have people come back who heard me speak 6 months, a year ago, and all of a sudden they show up in my inbox. They're like, hey, yeah, I heard you at X. And I'm like, and it still like makes my mind blown, because it's that reminder of you put something out there, someone shares it, and all of a sudden people are showing up. And it's about building those continuous relationships so that you can create that kind of flow, right? So that it happens. And again, it takes effort. It doesn't have to be hard, but it does require work.
Yeah, it's time. I mean, you're going to invest time, or it's time or money, right? And you basically decide what you want to invest. You either invest, more of your time and your labor and your personal time, or you invest more money. And those are basically the only two ways to grow a business. Or both, I mean, that's just super simplistic, and it sounds terribly simplistic to say it, but in all reality, you invest time or you invest money to grow. And sometimes both, sometimes one or the other. If you have the time, you invest time. If you have the money, you invest money. But if usually it's a one or the other in the beginning, or not even the beginning, but even 2 to 3, 4, 5 years. I'm 5 years in, and I can't see myself ever stop networking. Like I cannot, because it is truly how I feel. It's how I best serve. I'm reading a book right now called The Profit of Kindness, and they talk a lot about about how it's connection, and then it turns into clients, and then it turns into profits and different things. And sometimes it's just about giving. Like last week, I jumped on the phone with somebody to answer some questions. I didn't charge her. Like it was my time, but I paid with kindness. Like I invested kindness into her. At some point, I will get a return on that. I didn't go into it with that, but I will. At some point, I will get some level of return on that.
It's true. It always circles back. I'm a huge believer in that, and I'm totally agree on that. So before we get too far along, we've shared about so many different things. If you were to share with a small business owner or someone coming up and trying to figure out what to do, what would be your priority relationship building tip or strategy that you would share that you see being most helpful for a small business person?
Stop being afraid of getting into the DMs. I'm like doing a huge series on that right now and over on TikTok, but I'm probably going to bring it to my other social channels too. But there's so many people that are afraid to send that message in the DM. It's creepy, it's spammy, I don't want to bother somebody. Again, we're not in person. We're not in person where we're meeting and handing out business cards. So sending a message in the DM is basically saying, hey, it was great to meet you. I'd love to learn more. Let's set up a one-to-one. The DMs do not have to be spammy, and they are your opening conversation. And you think about it in a way of like, when you send a DM, you're either you're starting the conversation, you're continuing the conversation, or you're amplifying a conversation. And those are the only 3 things you need to do. And stop being so afraid of it. If somebody is bothered by it, oh, well, that's on them, not you. If somebody's busy, they won't answer. Like, we don't think anything of sending a text to a friend at any given random time, because we just know that when it's convenient, they'll respond back. Like, why is this such a bother in the online or the digital small business space? And I think, again, because people do it poorly. But just because somebody's done it poorly in any industry, there's always going to be somebody that does it poorly, but there's always people that do it correctly too. And you can really do that very well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I detest spam DMs, but I also know, because it was a challenge for me for a long time, I wouldn't do it, but it was because of the way people were communicating with me. And I am a networker, right? And I was just like, but I realized I'm not them. I'm not going to act. So let me represent who I am when I reach out. following up with people quarterly, that I follow, or then checking in with someone when I see some little comment. I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Let's get on the phone and chat. Literally, one of my old clients returned to me because I read something she posted, and I'm like, are you okay? She's like, no, we need to talk. And boom, there we were, right?
Exactly.
Just because I just reached out.
Right. Being aware. It's just being mindful of the people in your world and just coming from a place of compassion and genuine authenticity. And, I'm not afraid to, put the elephant in the room saying, hey, Patricia, I'm sure you get a lot of spammy messages that are from bots that are just trying to pitch you. I promise I'm a human. I am typing this message. Right. I literally am just dropping in to say hello, and I wanted to get to know you, yep. And people respond to that too, or, and using audio messages. There's so many, again, we have tools now. We have tools that allow us to humanize these things. And so use them. Yes,
absolutely. I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
I know.
Yay. All right. So if you want, we're going to make sure that we memorialize this and put it on all the spaces, right? But if you want to follow up with Michelle, where is the best place for people to follow up with you?
On LinkedIn, just search my name on LinkedIn, you'll find me, or just Michelle at michelledenio.com.
Awesome. And also, if for some reason you can't find her, just DM me and say, hey, I watched y'all's coffee chat exactly. And I want to get in touch with Michelle because Michelle has awesome things coming up. You want to talk about them, and then we'll get ready to close things out.
Yeah, so the Accelerated Business Alliance is getting ready to open their doors again. It's one of and that's my most exciting thing right now. Truly, I feel strongly about not letting people trickle in one at a time, because I don't like when people get lost in a sea of already built up relationships. So I try to bring people in groups. So my next group is going to be coming in here pretty quickly. So that's open, and then we'll just continue to be bringing amazing professionals into there. And I've got a couple one-on-one spots open if that's something that people are in need of, a 1 or 2 month kind of intensive, just depending on where they're at in business. But I mean, just in general, just continuing to grow, show up, and be who I am, and help however I can.
Yes. Yeah. She's being very modest, y'all. Michelle is like a powerhouse. All the energy, like she makes me look like a tired old person.
I don't know about that. You catch me on a good day, yes, but yeah.
But thanks so much, Michelle. I'm so glad we finally got to do this, to get together. And we'll be, working on some other things, I'm sure, again in the future. But thanks everyone for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, hit us up in the DMs, and we will be following up with you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you.